If I had a nickel for every time a State of Origin player has hijacked a bus, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it is weird that it happened twice. It's officially State of Origin season, and what better way to honour the beauty that is State of Origin than by reminiscing some of the most absolutely batshit crazy stories this game has given us. Welcome back to Tong Time, baby. New and improved. We may be separated by state lines, but there is one thing that Queenslanders and New South Welshmen have in common, and that is a shared love of that is a shared love of stealing buses. It's honestly one of the highlights of Origin lore, and a story that I quote at the pub pretty much any time someone asks me to explain why New South Wales just gets Origin better than Queensland does. And that, my dear friends, is the time that Bryan Fletcher hijacked a Waverley Council bus to take him into town. Iconic. Okay, so let me set the scene. The year is 2000. It's the turn of the century, right? The Blues are out in Coogee because they've already won the series. They've won the first 2 games, which is their first series win since 1997. And let's be honest, who among us cannot have their arm twisted into a night out at the Coogee Bay Hotel? Just don't try the ice cream. As is the case with most stories that start at 3 o'clock in the morning, the details are a little bit fuzzy on this. Fletch has spoken about this quite a few times now, and specific details such as who was there and what the bus driver's name was seems to vary depending on which recollection we're going off. But you know what? Thou, who has never forgotten the details of a night out after having too many drinks at the pub, shall cast the first stone. And I mean it when I say I am not here to cast stones. So Fletch, Ben Kennedy, Brett Camorley, and potentially Rodney Howe are out on a night out in Coogee. They're trying to get from Coogee to King's Cross, but it's 3 o'clock in the morning, Uber doesn't exist, and Lord knows no taxi driver is picking up a bunch of drunk rugby league players at 3 o'clock in the morning. So what do? They get creative. Fletch, ever the innovator, goes up to a Waverley Council bus driver and asks him for a lift. So he asked the Waverley bus driver to take them to King's Cross, to which the driver said absolutely not. But he didn't take no for an answer. He bribed the bus driver, which he later stressed was his own money and not the New South Wales Blues money. And the bus driver said, you know what, mate, twist my arm, let's go to the pub. Iconic. Would it ever happen in Queensland? Absolutely not. But it wasn't just a trip to the cross, my dear friends. That would be too simple for the bus driver whose name is either Andy, Andrew, or Fernando, depending on which recollection you're going off. The driver first had to take Fletch home because he needed to change into a pair of jeans before they hit the town, which was obviously not easy considering Fletch lived on a one-way street. So the bus driver is driving Fletch home, accidentally ends up turning the wrong way up his one-way street. So all the boys have to get out and push in all of the mirrors of the cars so they can actually get up the street. The boys and the bus driver go inside, they get changed, and then they are back on this bus. I don't know exactly where Fletch lived at the time, but you can imagine a one-way street in Sydney is not the easiest to get out of at the best of times. Thankfully, the bus driver ended up doing a 1,000-point turn and managed to get back out. Honestly, the mateship on display here, you'd never catch it in Queensland. They then headed to the Bourbon in King's Cross for an iconic night out with the bus driver still in tow. The bus driver mounted the curb and left the bus on the side of the road and went out with the boys. Considering I have copped parking fines in Sydney for overstaying my park by less than 5 minutes, it is absolutely insane to me that this bus driver just mounted the curb and left it there, and presumably nobody questioned it. This has to be the most insane detail of the story to me. So with his little bus driver coin belt in tow, this man partied with the boys until 4 or 5 in the morning, and then Fletch never saw him again. In an interview later, he said, "The last I saw of him was on the Bourbon dance floor downstairs with his brown coin bag over his shoulder." Did this crazy night out impact the game? Well, in my opinion, yes it did. New South Wales went on to beat Queensland 56-16, the biggest winning margin in Origin at the time. Ultimately, New South Wales went on to smash Queensland 56-16, leading to a 3-0 series and a stack of records being beaten, including biggest winning margin in history, most points in a match, most points, goals and tries by an individual in a match, most points by an individual in a series, all held by Ryan Girdler. Fletch also managed to score a try in this game, which I guess goes to show that players and bus drivers from New South Wales just really get Origin in a way that Queenslanders don't. It's not quite as good as our story, and honestly, what has Queensland ever done that's as good as us? But Queensland do have their own bus hijacking story, this time with Darren Lockyer. This story comes courtesy of a very, very old interview with Gordon Tallis, and my God, it is a beauty. So during Wayne Bennett's coaching years, the Queensland team were given a night out at the casino ahead of Game 1 to just let off a bit of steam. They all went out for Chinese food, and then they were given a few hours to have a punt, hang out, watch the footy, whatever they wanted to do within good reason, but they had a very strict midnight curfew. Basically, Uncle Wayne said, Go have your fun, but be back here to catch the bus at midnight, no exceptions. But when it came time to get back on the bus, Darren Lockyer thought it would be funny to prank Uncle Wayne by driving the bus himself. Now, we're not talking a mini bus that your mum drives to soccer practice. We are talking a full-blown, like 40-seater coach. Lockyer obviously thought he could just drive it a little bit up the road, have a bit of a laugh, and then reverse it back. But because of backed up traffic, he ended up having to drive the bus the whole way out onto the freeway to turn around and come back and pick up the rest of the team, all while unlicensed. According to an old interview with Gordon Tallis, the whole ordeal took about 7 minutes, which thankfully was about as much time as it took Wayne Bennett to go from absolutely seeing red and wanting to kill Darren Lockyer to seeing the humour in the situation.